Amitav, thanks very much for speaking to us on The Quint.
Thank you, Venkatesh. It's a great pleasure.
Firstly, congratulations. 10 years, 3 books. It must be a satisfying feeling. Are you happy with the outcome?
Yes, I am. I must say, it has been 10 years dedicated to, in a sense, a single project. And at the end of it, I really did feel a sense of incredible fulfillment, that I had set out on this long and very difficult path, and I got to the end of it.
I guess only we can imagine how difficult it must have been for you, but in what way has the trilogy changed you? We understand you had to pick up a few skills, a few arts, a few languages even.
Yes, I had to learn a lot of things, like I tried to learn how to sail, for example, and that was a really exciting thing. I think most of all, I would say, really, before I wrote the trilogy, I had never been to China. I had never seen China. I had really never been much interested, in going to China.
As I introduced you just now, I introduced you as a writer. But is that just the only one appellation that will describe what you do? I've heard you describe yourself, for instance, as an entrepreneur, as a researcher, as a historian.
Look, the point that I was trying to make is that, if you're a writer who makes their living from writing, it is in a way like like a small-scale entrepreneur. I mean, because you just have to constantly, be inventive. You have to love risk, because it's all about risk and uncertainty. I think that is really the central thing. I mean, writing is just about risk and it's not the writing on the page, but rather the writer's life is one of risk and uncertainty. Yeah.
Amitav, your books, they deal with so many aspects of life. It's difficult to focus on any single aspect, but for me, it's about the hidden worlds that they sort of unveil, and the trilogy has so many hidden worlds and worlds within worlds. My question is, while writing this trilogy, you're concentrating in 1839 and the Opium Wars between British India and China. Were there any parallels to contemporary India or contemporary world that you think this trilogy might address?
Oh, absolutely. And it wasn't something it wasn't a prejudged idea that I went in with. But certainly at the end of it, it's perfectly clear to me that there are, the Opium War inaugurated a phase in world history which we might call free trade imperialism. There are such distinct parallels between the first Opium War and, for example, the Iraq War. The rhetoric surrounding both these wars is actually eerily similar.
Would you say that the current administration, Prime Minister Modi, but not necessarily just the NDA government, but even the previous Congress government, do you think they've got, they're going to be able to handle the big challenges and the deprivations that India faces?
India faces, challenges that are scalar, simply because we are such a big country. It's very hard to see how a political system can actually address them or adapt to them. I mean, for example, just the issue of climate change, India has not sort of significantly addressed, I think, issues arising out of climate change. But you could say the same of America, for example, or of Australia or whatever. But in our case, we are extraordinarily vulnerable. We have a very great degree of vulnerability to climate change impacts. And I think this is going to become increasingly a critical issue, yes.
Just to shift focus onto the book itself and the 3 books, a lot of action takes place on board the Ibis. And the Ibis is used to transport, of course, opium, but also people. And I read somewhere that if the 17th and 18th centuries was about slavery and African Americans, the 19th century was sort of slavery, if you could call it, for the Indians or indentured labor?
Well, I wouldn't say that it was the same thing as slavery, but certainly I think it could be very clearly said that what Africa was to the 17th and 18th centuries, India was to the 19th. That is, it was a source of captive labor. But that being said, it should be noted that there are many important differences between slavery and indentured labor, even though the conditions of work and the conditions of transportation were often very similar. But in fact, there were significant differences between them.
Amitav, the books itself, there's so many different languages, words from different languages, Hindi, Urdu, Gujarati, Bengali, Cantonese, Creole, Pidgin. Do you think this sort of richness has been completely lost to contemporary times now? And when people speak, it seems to be like a very monolingual way of speaking.
English, you mean?
English, yes.
Yes, it's true. I think English has become, it's one of the sort of paradoxes of English in the 20th century, that as English became more and more hegemonic, it became also narrower and narrower. 19th century English is filled with so many diverse influences, so many different kinds of, streams. And I really wanted to sort of deploy that, if you like, in the book to give a sense of this incredibly rich and heterogeneous world.
Your books are immensely detailed, they're captivating, there's a lot of nuance. The characters are instantly identifiable, and I, for one, believe they read a bit like thrillers do. So in that sense, is there any sort of way you distinguish between genre fiction and literary fiction, that sort of thing?
I've never wanted to be involved in the business of what to label my books or anyone else's books. So I leave that to wiser minds like yourself.
All right. On that note, thanks very much.
Thank you, Venkatesh.
We wish you the very best.
Thank you. Thank you.